All right, welcome back to the live stream for the afternoon session. We're still on the Nasdaq futures. We switched over to the March contract now for a scalping session on a 30-second chart. We had CPI released this morning at 8:30. We had a nice impulse up to the yearly high, then a breakdown in price for about 160, 170 points. We started working our way back from there after the 9:30 opening. And we just kind of trickled our way up to about a 75 to 80% retracement of that full leg down. But throughout that, majority of that move was made between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. After that, it made it to the 50% retracement point, and then it just kind of consolidated from 10 till 11 o'clock. It made a small move right at 11 o'clock, and then it consolidated up until lunch. I see now, since 12 o'clock, it has bought up and created a little bit of momentum. It's moved up about 30 or 40 points. And now we just had at 101, we just had the release of the 30-year bond yield. And so far, it looks like that hasn't created any type of reaction. Okay, I'm looking at the Forex Factory and it still shows pending. Let me pull down my calendar that I check for news every day just in case someone on the live feed is not actively checking news or doesn't know where to check news. Here's Forex Factory. I'll put this link in the chat. Let's see. Okay, there's that link. It still says pending. Okay, just popped up just now. So now we have the bond yield has now been released. Let's go ahead and remove that now that everyone's had a chance to see it. And there's the reaction we were hoping for. I was wondering what was happening. It just didn't release at exactly 101. It was more like 102. About a 15-point retracement to get down into the zone, back into the 30% retracement of the manipulation leg, the last one. Okay, we have just recently overtaken this high. Sorry, it's pretty small. And this was from just before lunch, 11:45. We have this high at 11:20. And then ultimately we have the highs over here from 8:30. And that's up at 16, almost 550. And we're currently trading at around 510 to 515. So we're around 40 points away from the all-time high this morning. Or not the all-time high, but the daily high, the monthly high, and the 2023 high. Okay, let's continue to monitor price and see if it is going to retrace, or we're going to continue to push higher and get some higher prices here. Let's remove these purple lines from the earlier session. Okay, we see just before lunch this retracement from this morning's bearish activity at the 8:30 CPI release. We see the retracement came all the way back up and crossed just barely into the 78.6% retracement level. That was its peak. Then it broke down heading into lunch. It is now recovered that entire breakdown, and it's now back at the 78% level. So now we just want to monitor price and see if it's able to break through, or if we're going to see another rejection from this level and we're going to see lower prices down into this fair value gap, or ultimately down to this target in the new day opening gap. So for now, let's just sit back and watch and see how price delivers. Okay, we did have a low swept, so that step of the process has been done. We're now looking for a new high to be made, which hasn't been done yet. It's right now trading in between the high and this low that was put in here. It broke down below the low, and now it's just kind of trickling at about the 50% mark. I thought it was going to break through on this impulse here, but it rejected out and closed down right at the 50% again. So let's see now if the next couple candles can close above 50% of that zone and then trade out of it. Okay, we see price continuing to break down. Let's see where it ends up. Yeah, you're right, Chris. Again, it keep getting stuck at that level. See, that's where, let me just pull up ES for a second. Yep, double topped on double highs here. Maybe it'll come back to get that later. But you're right. That's showing resistance. Price is rejected right off of that level. And it looks like Nasdaq is following suit. So far, we've had rejection off of this fair value gap for the last 5 or 6 candles. Remember, we had an orange folder, which created this impulse leg here, which was only about 20 points, 15 to 20 points. But it's very similar to what we had earlier today, prior to lunch, where between 10 o'clock, it just kind of consolidated, didn't really move out of the zone. And at 10:50, we got to move up. We thought it was moving and it was going to do something. It got up to here. And then 11 o'clock just traded in the same zone. 11:50, price nose dives for the lunch hour to 12:10. After 12:10, it recovered most of that nosedive that I just mentioned. Um, and now we're just sitting in this area. We had a small news event which led us here, and now price is showing an unwillingness to break out so far. Although right now there looks like there may be some momentum, and we may get what we're looking for. Okay. You see, we got this kind of thing happening, creating this sort of like funnel like formation. So at least that lets us know that price is going to break out soon. We just need to be a little patient. Yeah, I didn't pay a lot of attention to London earlier, but if you look at the bottom left at the 15-minute chart that I have up, we can see that from the midnight open right here at 16,470, price only moved up to 16,490 and down to 16,460. So it stayed in a 30-point zone from midnight all the way until, wow, so about 8 o'clock this morning, right before the 8:30 impulse. So I guess I'll stop complaining about these little consolidations that we're getting since London had an entire 8-hour session that was just like this. You'll have this target down here that I thought price would have ran for this morning. We got pretty close during the lunch hour. And also we got really close, let's see, around 10:30-ish, 10:15, 10:30. I thought price would have returned back down. And so far it has not. We do have double bottoms here, which could be a draw on price. Down at 14, I'm sorry, 16,465. Okay, so we had our funnel broken, it seems. Let's give it a few more candles just to make sure it doesn't return. Okay, looks like we're safely out of the funnel, so let me remove that. But I hope everyone was able to see that when you start seeing price coil up like that, that there is a breakout coming. Can't just continue to make higher lows and lower highs. At some point, it'll just be sitting on itself and price will need to break. Okay, did this low get broken? It did. In fact, oh, okay, not quite. I was thinking it may be 30% from this earliest setup that I marked up when the session first started, which actually is a layover from lunch. I thought it had retraced down to 30% and then bought out of that, which would have been interesting to watch, but that didn't happen. It was close. Traded back up to this low that we had marked up as a low that we wanted to see broken if we were going to look for a long. Okay, and another rejection off that area. Okay, let's just remove some of these lines so we can have a cleaner chart. And these equal lows here, likely not to last long. Hey, buddy. The dog has decided to join us for the live session for a couple minutes. He usually gets bored and he doesn't hang out very long, but just stepped in. Okay, so it worked. Anyone who liked this setup here was just rewarded. This was the scalping model working. So let me just walk you through that trade setup. Okay, so we remove that. All right, so this is lunchtime movement. You can see that we had a low put in here, and then price starts to buy up throughout the first half hour of lunch, right? Creating new highs, high here, new high, new high. Um, as it's doing that, if we're looking for a scalping setup, as once we determine that price action is bullish, we then look for a low to be swept. And this was all done at basically 1 o'clock when I get back on the stream. But I could see where we were. So when I came back and started looking at price action, we were over here in this range. But what I wanted to do was to mark up over here where we had lows taken. And as we were making highs, the first low to be taken was this one, right? So once that was done, then once that low was snapped, we're looking for the high to be taken that was made before this low, which would be here. At the news event, we saw that high taken. So then we could mark up this entire leg from this high down to this low. That would be manipulation, where it was driving price down, getting people to take shorts when price really was going to move up. So what we want to do is put a Fibonacci on that. Let's actually put the scalping one. There we go. All right. And then we look for a return to 30% on its retracement down, which took about a half hour or so, but it finally did trickle down, crossing over the 30% mark. We have a long tool where it took about 2 candles and then it exited to give the 5-point profit. And it looks like from the entrance to the low was approximately 1 tick. So 1 tick of drawdown is what that trade would have had. Oddly enough, this low that was broken, right? The low that was broken right here. That line's still there, and that is the low when price was retracing, where it retraced to. Once it tapped in, then it bought out of there. All right, so let me just remove these lines. They're no longer relevant. That was a good trade for anyone who took it. Congratulations. Now, if we're continuously looking for bullish momentum, we have a low taken here. And now we need to see high made. Be here. Okay. Just want to make sure we're still in the upper portion of this price leg, even as it's retracing down. We want to keep an eye out because as we get closer to the midpoint of this leg, we don't want to enter trades. So actually where the last trade was taken from, we don't really want to take a trade any lower than that. All right, looks like price is returning bullish. We have a new high put in. Okay, let's clean up a bit. Move the short tool. Okay, that trade is over. First trade in the afternoon session. So we're at 0 for 1 in this session. Price made a complete retracement back down to the low it had before it made that impulse up. So let's just continue monitoring and wait until price exits this area before we look for another setup. Price came all the way back, a couple ticks away from re-entering the previous trade. Okay, it's 1:35 now. So I'm going to hold off on any setup until 2 o'clock. Mainly because it just took a trade that didn't work out. So I don't want to rush back in and take another one. But price continues to show longs, even though we did make a high earlier, which seems now to be a barrier. Price doesn't really want to put in new highs. Okay. So it looks like the 50% entry on the one that I just took that didn't work out on the 30% did work out on the 50. It also worked out on the 70. So congratulations to anyone who took those two trades. Like I said, now I'm going to wait for price to move out of this area, either up or down, and then we'll look for a setup during the next hour. So we have about 24 minutes, but that should be plenty of time for price to find a new place to land. Great. So it looks like the 8:30 open, which is at 16,510. Seems to be where price is rejecting from now. This is the third time we've visited this zone since the 8:30 open occurred. We had the impulse up for sort of CPI. It returned at 11, and then it returned at 1 o'clock, and now here we are 30 minutes later or 40 minutes later. Okay, we have a rejection off of the 1 o'clock high. Looks like it may be trying to make another pass at it. So let's see if it can make another test and see what those results are, or if it just pushes downwards and we have another test of the fair value gap. Let's just keep that on the screen. Seems like there's also a fair value gap here that seems to be wicking. Oh, okay. So a new high has been made for this afternoon session. Okay, nice impulse candle. We're in the middle of now. Let's see how that closes. Okay, whoever took this trade, congratulations to them. That was also a winner. I know after I lost the trade down here, I didn't want to get into another one until 2 o'clock, but it looks like this trade actually delivered. Now we haven't had a low taken since then, so there hasn't been another setup. But that was the last setup that was created, and it was created when this low, I'm sorry, this high was made, then this low was swept as price moved down, and then price made a new high over here. When it made that new high, then we had our setup. It traded back down, tapped into the trade, and then 6 or 7 candles later, it delivered. Okay. New high has now been made. We're still looking for a low to be swept, so we can look for another long setup. We're getting close to the 2 o'clock hour. Okay, let's look at where we are on our retracement leg. We just passed the 83%. We're approaching 88.6% at 16,530. And then a full retracement or make a new high would be at 16,548. So 16,550 would make a new high for the day. Let's keep that number in our mind. It's about 25 points away from where we are now. Looks like that is the draw on liquidity. So let's see if we can't get a long entry here. All right, seems like it's continuing to seek higher prices without taking any lows. So there hasn't been any entries or entry points since down at around 16,510-ish. Well, yeah, well, the entry is at 16,507, but since then there hasn't been any lows taken. What I want to do is let me jump down to the 15-second and see if maybe we missed something. Sometimes you'll get a formation on the 15-second that you do not get on the 30. Let's see. Yep, we have a low taken here. Buy up to a new high. Trade it down here and delivered. So that 15-second actually did deliver a trade at 1337. Let's look and see where our next low was swept. I believe it was here. You can see this little wick right here poking out the bottom. Then what you want to see is you want to see a new high made. So over here, we do see a new high. And if we mark up this as our manipulation area, do we ever get a retracement to 30%? And we do not. So this would not have turned into a trade. But it do seem like there was a trade here to be made. Let me mark that back up and see what it looks like on the 30. Okay. All right, but since we're monitoring the 30-second, that's a 15-second one. So let's delete that. If we were actively watching it and the trade hadn't started yet and we were looking to get in, I would have left it there and we could have taken that trade from the 15-second. But since we're still looking for trades on the 30-second, I don't want to leave a Fibonacci there where there's no swing low being taken. Okay, let's move these tools out of the way. We don't need them right now. Also, clear these lines. Okay, we have a low that's been made here. Oh, Chris, glad you brought that up. I will create something. Let me create a, checklist slash video or something to detail what this strategy is. So you have something that you can refer back to to detail the setup. I'll put something together. But that's a good idea to use your practice account until you feel comfortable taking those trades on your own. I would highly recommend that. That's how I started. Oh, how funny. Just now made 500 back. Okay, that's great. Okay, clock is now at 2 o'clock. Let's see if price action we saw from the last hour is over, and we can now see something that's a bit more polished and cleaner, and something that we can see a setup in. We're still about 20 points away from the high from this morning, which again was also the high for for this month, for any time frame you look at since the high of 2022. Okay, so we had a new high, and now we see price breaking down. Yeah, I'm getting better at waiting. I will tell you that. Definitely getting better at waiting, but it does work your nerves when you're really eager and excited to trade. Okay, is it going to push for higher prices, or where is it going? See, I'm not actively entering in any trades. I just want to sit back and wait and see where price is going. We are 20 points away from the high of the year, so I mean, it could push up and make higher prices, but it could very well push the other direction. Okay. I played poker a couple times. I understand the rules loosely, but I haven't played enough to understand the real strategy on how to do it, and then also getting good at faking out the other players. Okay, let's see if price wants to run into this fair value gap down here, which would then validate this short that I have marked up. Okay, excellent. Glad you're on your practice account. Glad you're on your practice account. Because the way price is moving today, I don't know. I don't have a lot of confidence in what's happening. But if I had to guess, I would lean towards price going lower than higher for the remainder of the day, only because it did hit an extreme high. So I figure I wouldn't want to just continue to push on that. Just in case it returns back up, I'll enter. Yeah, I agree. On a higher time frame, I mean, everything continues to look bullish. It's just so slow in getting back up there. So I think it's either building up liquidity, um, or I don't know. But it's for sure it's definitely building up liquidity. There's you can see all the lows that have been protected on its way up. There are a lot of stop losses still out there that haven't been tapped into yet, which would be another reason to seek lower prices, just to take those stop losses out and pick up liquidity. I apologize if you can hear my dog. He's becoming a bit hyper right now. I hear him barking. Yep. I just while we're waiting for this trade to finish up, just want to highlight to everyone that I did switch over to the March contract today. Yesterday, the December contract had more volume than March, but I checked it again this morning, and the opposite had taken place. So now the March contract has more volume than the December contract. So for the future going forward until March of next year, I'll be trading using the March contract. All right, that trade ended. It was a loss. So we can see price is just playing in this little area here. Saw lower lows made. Saw it trade up and then entered our trade, but it couldn't produce anything. So we will go back to the sidelines and continue to monitor price and look for the next setup. But for sure, we definitely will not trade again in this range here. So if price remains here, regardless of, regardless of what it shows, we won't take a setup there. Just checking to see if anyone entered on the 50%, whether that delivered or not. The 70% is the closest, but no, it hasn't delivered either. In fact, the 70% was tapped in when the 30% was tapped out. No, I got stopped out. I didn't get out before I got stopped out. But I did switch out of my evaluation account. I switched over to the practice account prior to taking that trade. Oh, sweet. Smart man. Looks like the 70% entry is potentially, well, I thought it was getting ready to deliver. Price had other ideas. There it is. So the 70 delivered, and it's the 50 almost. Oh, I love it. I love it. You got back in at 40. Oh, at 30. Okay. Got it. Okay. So you took a second entry and now you should be in profit by a point or two. Let's see if price will continue to push down and break out. right, let me throw up the 15-minute here on this big chart here. I just want to show you where we are and why we're having issues with making higher prices. You can see this was the move from 8:30 to the opening bell at 9:30, and we just kind of been trickling up all day, little by little, sweeping highs, sweeping lows. As you can see, we've just creeped and crossed over the 88% retracement level. And that's where the candle body stopped, right at 88%. We have a wick above, but the body stopped right at 88%. So this is worth noting and just paying attention to if we are looking for longs, is that we probably want to wait until we make a new high before we trust that longs is what we're going to do for this afternoon. Okay, let's just shift back down. I just wanted to point that out, since price does seem to be a bit stagnant in this area. Okay, 50% trade is still in, still has not delivered. Got really close down here, but then turn around and went the other way. Let's see. Let's see if price can deliver on this 50% retracement level. It's gotten close once before, even the second time, but still hasn't delivered the full 5 points. Okay. Price still dancing around the entry part, the entry point, right around the 50% mark of this zone. And I tell you, I'm starting to believe the markets has some personal vendetta against me. It seems like whenever I do a live stream, it just wants to consolidate. And we sit here and we watch price move up and down and up and down and in the same 20-point range. And it does that for an hour. I don't know. I'm trying not to take it personal, but it seems like the market makers know exactly who I am, don't want me to succeed. It's okay. I don't mind being patient. I'll just keep waiting and continue to wait, and eventually it'll give me the setup I'm looking for. But I may have to wait until the next hour, so maybe at 3 o'clock. We'll see. All right, we got equal highs up here. Oh man. Yeah, so right here would be where we would have wanted to get out, which is above where the stop loss was, just above. So now, definitely since we were looking for a short, by it crossing this high, we're now swinging back bullish. Said I didn't want another trade in this area, and I'm going to hold to it this time, and I will not take another one anywhere in this box. Right here. It does count, but what happened was we took the trade based off of it making a new low right here. So we had a low here, and then we took out this high. This was the high that was swept, along with this high as well, and then it made a new low. And so I took a short based on this new low. So when this high was made, we were already in a trade. But I get what you're saying. It made a high and then it came back and then went above that high. That is something that you could do to minimize your risk. So if you're in a trade, and it makes a high and then it starts to break lower, like it's gonna go to TP, you could reduce, just grab your stop loss and pull it down to this level. And so then if it breaks out, at least you've just preserved maybe a point or so. That's a good point, Chris. Absolutely. You can start looking at ways of limiting risk once you see that the trade is taking quite some time, because usually these trades take 3 or 4 minutes. I mean, in 6 or 7 candles, it's usually done. And in this case, we saw it extend for a little over 20 minutes. So in that case, when you start seeing, especially like when we had it move down here and we got pretty close to TP, that definitely would have been an opportunity to reduce risk. All right, just want to remind everyone we have core PPI at 8:30 tomorrow morning, and then the federal funds rate, interest rates coming out at 2 p.m. tomorrow, and then the FOMC press conference at 2:30. So tomorrow afternoon's probably going to be, we may find some setups at 1 o'clock, but from 2 o'clock until 3 o'clock, most likely we won't take any setups. We'll just watch price and maybe look for setups at 3 o'clock. But we do have FOMC tomorrow, so tomorrow's going to be eventful, and we'll need to make sure that we remember that those events are happening, because price will be volatile based on those times. So 8:30, 2, and 2:30. Okay, so we don't have an issue about lows being swept. We have that. We now need a new high to be made. We have equal highs here, so let's see if we can get up there and sweep those highs, make a new high, and then we could potentially look for a long. Yeah, there we go. It looked like price was stuck for a second. So there it is. Okay, we didn't quite make a new high. Okay, so we had an equal high and then a breakdown in price. Okay. While we wait and nothing's really happening here, let's take a peek over at S&P and see how they're performing. Okay. Looks like, okay, so for the last 45 minutes or so, there's like a 3-point range. Wow. Since 1 o'clock, there is like a 6-point range. Let's see. See, it's bouncing off. Here, 20. Bullish, bullish. Yeah, looks like the 20 is holding up, except for maybe this little cluster of candles making this low. But for the most part, yeah, it looks like the 20 is holding everything. Okay, we got triple tops. Let's see if it can take it out, make a new high, and it does. All right, let's go back to Nasdaq. Nasdaq did the same, made a new high finally. Okay. A little too close to comfort for me, so this is not an entry I'm looking to take. Still, I mean, it's just too close to this cluster of candles. I want to see it really break out and go and do something else. I know the high is at 16,550. We've now just reached just shy of 16,540, so we're 10 to 15 points away from hitting that all-time high. Well, not the all-time high, but the high of this year, 2023. And I see price did dip in and hit that 30% entrance. So let's at least put the tool on it so we can see where it ends up. Okay, this would be the entrance here. Let's see if this long doesn't deliver something. I am in my practice account now, so I'm not worried about my combine being hit by this. I should have tried it at 50% because I did in my head say that going forward for the rest of the day, I would do 50% entries just because of how price action has been and also how my results have been with the entries that I took. So I should have entered down here. Which means I wouldn't be in yet. Let's put this back where it was. Or actually, since we're in a trade, we don't even need this anymore. Let's just move it. If we can't get above this high on this candle from 2 candles ago, if we can cross above that, and let's see about reducing our risk to this swing low. So now we're in for a 1.25 of risk. Okay. Break even now. Move it up on that candle now. So now we'll get an extra 1/4 point. So we'll cover commission, and then we can walk away with $5 for our troubles. Oh, one tick away. One tick away, and then it pulled back. Let's see if we can't get this one to deliver. There it is. Finally, finally, finally. Okay, Chris, we're gonna keep walking through these setups till you're familiar and comfortable. And you seem to be the one with the questions. Um, all right, so even though we just had that trade deliver, by delivering our 5 points, it made a new high. So that would be step number 1, right? Now we're looking for step number 2. So we look where we are and start looking downwards for a low to be swept. And the closest low to us is this one, right? And then we keep going to the left to see if there was one higher that this one eclipsed, and it didn't. So we keep looking, and the lows are below. It's below. It's below. All of these are below. So it hasn't taken a low yet. So we're waiting for price and outcome, make a lower low. And as soon as that happens, we want to see price then regain bullish momentum and take out this high. Okay, this candle that we're currently in has 10 seconds remaining. If it does not move below this candle, the previous candle, then we're going to shift this candle because now that will become the lowest low that we're near to. Okay, so now we shift it here. And we continue to do that until we have another low made. Okay, let's get to shift this one up to here. Okay, it's great that it made a high, but we still need a low to be swept. So we're still waiting for that purple line. It's still the lowest swing low to where we are now. Okay, now let's shift it up. This is now our new lowest, our swing low that's closest to price. Okay, good. All right, step 2 has been made. So step 1 was the new high. Step 2 was sweep of a low. Now step 3 is just like step 1, make a new high. Okay, as we see price approaching the new high, let's at least set up what our new trade would look like. And if it doesn't make a new high, that's fine. We haven't set a limit order yet, but we do want to make sure we have our Fibonacci in place, so we're not spending time doing that. This is a 30-second chart, so occasionally what happens is price will retrace into that 30% retracement rather quickly, and it may not give you an opportunity to create the limit order. Okay. Is create the limit. Okay, we've been tapped in. We're actively in the middle of a trade at the 30% retracement level. And remember, the high of the day was at 16,550, or actually 16,548. So where this trade ends is the high of the day, high of the month, high of the year. Let's just make sure that is accurate statement. Let's highlight this candle. And the high says 16,548 flat. Okay. So to win this trade, we actually need to go one tick above the high of the day. So let's keep that in mind. Let's be mindful of that. Okay. Yeah, gonna leave my stop where it is, and let's hope price action is on our side and we can make this new high and exit out of our all 5 contracts. Ooh, okay, all right. Bit testy there. Oops. Let's go to break even. In the event that price wants to break down, we'll take another entry here. Okay, so we are break even now. We want to see if price wants to retrace and give us an entry at 50%. If not, no harm, no foul. We'll just miss out on this opportunity, and that's okay. Okay, we got equal highs up here. Usually that means it'll become a magnet for price. Keeping an eye on time, it's 2:56, just a few minutes before the 3 o'clock hour. There it is. All righty. So it did deliver. I moved my stop to break even, so I wasn't able to carry it on to the finish line, but it did deliver. Chris, did you stay in? Were you able to stay in and hang in there? Okay, now that we've made a new high for the day, even if it was by just one tick, let's see if price continues on, which it may. And there it is. Okay. Haha, sweet. Got in once again and made 4 points. Excellent, excellent. Maybe you can transfer that over to my my combine account. Sweet, man. I'm glad you're doing well. Glad your session's going well. All right. Um, Starting to have this little spiel after each trade. Clean up our charts and get ready for the next setup. Okay, so we know we've made a new high. We identify our most recent swing low, which was, there were two. It was here, and then it was this one that was just created. So obviously we want to take the higher one. We want to continue to monitor until that low is swept, and then we want to look and see if we get new highs. And as you can see, if you as you go back through price action, whenever you get these equal highs, that's usually where price is coming to next. Got it there as well. We got it here. Yeah, it is too bad it's only practice, but uh, practice makes perfect. And the more practice you get, the more confident you get trading this setup, you'll be able to transfer that over to your combine. All right, let's see where this candle closes. We may be shifting up our swing low. Okay, we made a new high without taking this low, so this low still remains valid as the next point in our process. But let's shift it up, get a little closer. Okay, we got it again with equal highs. So again, we have an idea that price is going to want to pull in that direction. So let's see if we can't get a low taken, which we just did. Now let's see if these equal highs are next. Okay, that low was taken. Oh, several lows. This low. Oops. And this low, not quite. Okay, that one as well. Okay, let's remove these now. Get them out of the way. We know they've already been taken. We're now looking for a new high to be made at these equal highs. Okay, quadruple highs now. Let's see if it can move above this purple line. There it is. Okay. Ooh. All right, I like how the 5-point stop loss is right at this swing low. Price moves below this swing low, that would invalidate our trade. So that's a good place to have your stop loss. It just so happened to work out that way. It's a coincidence. But that doesn't give me any area to move my stop loss. So I just have to sit back and wait and see what happens. This. Stop's now been moved to break even. All right. All right, Chris, I assume you caught that one as well. I don't know if anyone else is trading. I don't see anyone else jumping into the chat at all. Okay, as we continue looking for additional setups, now that we've made a new high, the closest swing low is now marked up with the purple line. We're looking for it to be swept below, and then we're looking for a continuation higher. Adjust our screen. Price doesn't move out of the screen on us. And let's continue to wait for price to retrace a bit. Take out the closest low, and then let's see if it can continue and resume bullish and seek higher prices. Yeah, this morning session, we waited 2 hours and price just consolidated and didn't do much. And then this afternoon, for the first hour and 45 minutes, it did about the same. And now for the last 20 to 30 minutes, it's moving again in the direction or in a manner that we expected. Now that then we're able to utilize this scalping strategy and take setups. So I guess learning and identifying when not to trade is something I've been working on. Um, and if you've been on the live sessions, you've heard me talk about about setups I didn't like, or when price action isn't looking good, or it's stalling and consolidating, and I'm not really excited about what it's doing. That's why, because I'm looking for price action to perform and behave the way it is now. If you look at the last 20 minutes, the way price has been moving, that's the way that I want to see price moving for this scalping strategy. Otherwise, it's best to just sit around and just wait for price to change. Right? Sometimes it doesn't work out in the hour that you're sitting in front of the charts, and that's the beauty of this setup is it can be used on any time frame. So it's not like some of the other setups where you need the opening bell or you need news or something in order to trade. Um, you don't need that. All you need is price to uh, pick a direction, and you need it to develop a trend and follow that trend. Once that happens, then this setup is it's a high probability setup. Okay, we were waiting for this low to be swept. However, price did create a swing low here, and now that's been swept. So if we see price continue to make higher, continue upwards and put in higher values, if it can move past 16,561 and a half, then we'll look for a long setup. Otherwise, what we're going to do is we're going to wait and let price settle a bit and see if maybe price is going to short for the rest of the day. It's now 3:10. So another 5 minutes or so, we'll be looking for that afternoon macro to run. And that may actually give us lower prices. But for now, let's just wait and see. Okay, the low that we were waiting for before has now also been taken. Okay, but let's remember, ultimately what we're looking for is now for the high to be taken. We need a new high to be put in. All right, we're nearing actually making a new high. Here and here. There we go. Let's grab another one here and here. Not that we expect these to hold, but we do want to just monitor price as it approaches to see what happens. If we do make a new high, this is going to be our manipulation. So let's get that squared up, right? And you can see the 30% is right at the 50% of this fair value gap. So in that case, maybe we are expecting it to hold at least a bit. It can retrace in the middle of this zone, maybe even down to this second fair value gap. But let's see where the stop loss will be. Okay, so the stop loss would be below 70%. I would say it's probably easier and better. I would still a little nervous about this wick that didn't get its 50% met. Okay. So in the event that a new high is made, I will look at a 50% entry as opposed to a 30. I'm trying not to pick the high. I've always heard that that's the easiest way to lose a trade is to try to pick the high or the low. So I don't want to pick the high, but I do want to be aware that we are at the highest point that we've been all year. And that just was taken today, and now it will continue to build upon that. So we continue to make higher values. Okay, there it is. A new high has been made. So let's go ahead and set up our limit order at the 50% entry. And let's see if price wants to retrace into that zone. Okay, let's remove these purple lines just to make things a little cleaner. Stretch out a bit. So we know when it hits those fair value gaps, it may get held up or bounce a little bit, but we need it to break through in order to get down to the 50% level to tap us into a trade. But it is only 3:15, so we have plenty of time. Yes, I am on every day. You can catch me at 10 a.m. for the morning session. And I have been doing 1 p.m. afternoon sessions. I'm not sure how long I'm going to continue to do the afternoon sessions, but at least through the rest of this week and most likely next week. So just subscribe to the channel and you'll get an invite for all of my sessions. If I can ask, Zorban, where are you chiming in from? Okay, if we do seek higher prices, right, we have another swing low that's been taken. So if we see this high broken prior to our order filling, we will cancel this limit order and we'll take another order up here. Okay, well, too late for that. We're in a trade now. Now we have to wait and see what happens. Price did come down pretty energetically though. That's slightly concerning. But let's hang in there and see how price delivers. The good news about this trade is it can actually deliver our profit without making a new high, which lowers the constraints on price action, which is good. So let's see if we have that working in our favor and if we're able to get the 5 points. Oh, Indiana. Okay. I'm in Arizona, actually in Phoenix. So this time of year we're in Mountain Time. Half the year, because our time never changes. So half the year we're in Mountain Time, and the other half the year we're in Pacific Time. Hey, we had the 50% tapped in. Anyone who took the trade at 50%, let's see. Oh, that's also where I'm tapped in at. Okay, so we're still in the trade. We're still waiting. Those who took the 30%, yeah, they need to reach a little higher. 70%, they never reached, or at least thus far, it has not reached the 70% level yet. Okay, we have crossed a high. So what I want to do now, let's just reduce our risk, bring the stop loss up to the swing low. Actually, let's do this swing low. See if we can't get a push upwards for a few more points. Okay, let's reduce our risk a little more. We had another swing high that was taken. So let's see if we can't get this trade to finish up. Okay, where we are now, 90% of the trade has already been reached. So let's just go to break even. If it comes all the way back on us, let's pay our commission, but let's not take a loss here. Equal highs. Come on. Yeah. Half a point to go. Let's go. There we are. Okay. So we have another one that worked out for us. Let's, get rid of this line here and let's see what price wants to do next. So everyone who's joined for like the last 30 minutes or so, I know it looks like everything worked out well and we've had an excellent session, but you missed, you came at the best time. You missed all the sitting around and waiting and funky price action that we had for the morning session and the first hour and a half of this afternoon. But if you are new to the channel and you've never been before, consider subscribing so you get invites for all the future live sessions. And also, if you're just enjoying today's session, hit the like button so YouTube can then promote this video to others looking for live sessions to join. Thanks. Yeah, Zora, this is a scalping channel, or at least during these sessions I've been scalping. So it's 5-point take profit, also a 5-point stop loss. So we have one-to-one trades. We look for anywhere from 4 to 6 setups per session. Each session is between 2 and 3 hours. And it really just depends on how price is working. It depends on what news is out there. Like tomorrow, we have news at 8:30 in the morning. And then for the afternoon session, there's the interest rates are released at 2 o'clock. And then the FOMC has their press conference at 2:30. So depending on when those things are being released, it could jam up our session a bit. But that's typically what we look for. 2 to 3 hour session, 4 to 6 setups, one-to-one trades, 5 points. So usually what happens is between, I would say 6 and 8 candles. So 3 or 4 minutes, the trade will finish. And we're mostly looking at the 30-second chart to take entries. Occasionally we'll jump down to the 15-second if we don't find anything on the 30, because the 15-second is very similar. It moves quicker. So a lot of times what'll happen is it'll go through the entire process of sweeping a low, making a new high, retracing back to 30%. And it does all of that fairly quickly before you can put your limit order in. And so for that reason, the 30-second works better for me. All right, getting close to 3:30. So we're going to be looking at the last half hour of trading today. I don't want to call this the high, but we may have reached the limit of what price action wanted to do today. And now it's going to just coil back on itself for the rest of the day, but we're going to wait and see. Since we did get a new high at the conclusion of the last trade, we got a new high. So if we do get a sweep of the low and then a new high made, we'll look for another setup. Righty, I can see from here, looks like there's trend line liquidity forming. Ooh, take that back. This has been forming for quite some time, since 2 o'clock really. Okay. Doesn't look like the trend line is really doing much. But what we can see is while it is taking out some lows, and we need that for our scalping setup, it's definitely continue to move up and making higher lows, higher highs, higher lows, higher highs. That's what makes a good scalping setup for us. But later on, at some point, that does run out, and price will seek all of these lows that have stop losses placed below them on the move up. So everyone who went long, who's in it for a long term, are putting their stop losses below all of these swings. All right, while I was talking and paying attention to trend lines, we made a new high. So since we've made a new high, let's look back and see if we made a new low somewhere. Oh, we took out a swing low, I'm sorry. And it looks like we have not taken a swing low in quite some time. So just like I mentioned, occasionally we'll jump down to the 15-second. Well, let's do that now. All right. So we had a swing low taken here. Then we had a race up for a new high. Which would then have a trend line here. This would have been our long. All right, so this would have been the trade setup for a 30% retracement. 50% retracement would have been here on the line. And we don't need these anymore. Now that we've confirmed the setup. Nice. Okay. We can already, since we have this swing low here, which we don't want to see price dip below, and already put our stop loss there, which limits our risk. However, increases the likelihood that we don't win the trade, but that's fine. There we go. Okay, price went in the area I didn't want to see it go. Also, because we've just had, I believe, 3 winning trades in a row on the move up. We're at, like I said, the all-time high of the year. We're at the end of a session. It's 3:30. So I didn't want to press my luck with going even higher than it's already done by going in with lots and lots of contracts. Normally my trades are 5 contracts. If you notice, I just went in with 1, just to account for the likelihood that the trade didn't work out. I also limited my exposure, so I didn't have the full 5 point as a stop loss. So I didn't lose the $100. I probably lost maybe 4, so that was $80. And just things like that are ways to limit your risk. When you're unsure, you either put in fewer contracts, a tighter stop loss, or instead of entering at 30%, you enter at 50, which gives you a little more leeway, or you wait for 70, like where it is now. It entered to 70. So let's slide this down. Right, so that 5 point stop loss now gets to come all the way down here. But all the way down here, sweeping this low and this low over here, would definitely say we're bearish and not bullish. So I wouldn't expect price to then run to target if we got all the way down here. So I wouldn't, even if I entered here at 70, I would still shift my stop loss up. And then you end up having a 2 point stop loss right here. Right. So in that case, see if we get a little dip in and then it'll run up. And if it runs up without dipping in and allowing us to take, oh, I guess I can stop talking. There it is. Let's see if price wants higher prices, or if it trades downwards and we lose the trade, then that's fine. Again, risk has been reduced. We're only in at 2 contracts. All right, it's still a little risky here because in order to win this trade, we got to basically come 1 tick away from making a new high. So price has to be willing to make a new high for today. Okay, all right, so that trade's over. We did not win it. We didn't go full risk. Let me extend this back down. Anyone who did are very near to ending their trade. Right, I knew it was a risk. I mean, we're at the end of the day, and the high may have been put in, or this is one of those situations where sometimes at 355, once everyone closed their laptop, then a price will run up for a new high. Well, let's see. Does the early market on close mean anything to you sell side? Early market on close. I'm not sure I understand the question. If can you rephrase the question? But as we're now seeking lower prices, we do have a high that was, so we had a low made here where my cursor is. Then we had this high, excuse me, this high was swept. And then we saw price break down to make new lows lower than this low as it broke down here. So in that case, we would then look at this. Then you want to go in for 30%. I mean, it's all hindsight now. The trade's over. It's already delivered. Oh, I take that back. No, it hasn't. It has not delivered yet. Okay, we have equal lows, which should be a magnet for price, driving price down, which by taking out these equal lows should bring it close to closing out this setup. Okay, I did say close, but I thought it would actually close it out. Oh, what was the reasoning for the last trade as a buy? The reason for the last trade being a buy is because uh, we were trending long. We continued to buy up, continued to make new highs, and so the reason why the last trade was a buy um, is we made this high, right? And then we were looking for price to then sweep a low, which it then swept a low from, let's see, from here, as well as this low. And then what we needed to see then was for price to make a new high. So if this was the previous high, once it got up and made these highs here, it traded back into the zone. And so then we wanted to enter at this 30% retracement for new highs. But instead of making new highs, price broke down, ended our trade. And then afterwards, we saw price continue to break down. And so basically what we had was a market structure shift at this point here. The price broke down and we lost the last trade. It made a market structure shift. It then came up, made a high. Then it swept that high here. And then after that, what we want to see, if we want to go for a short, we want to see it make a new low. So this was the previous low. And then we saw price break down. When that broke down and took out this low, then we set up our manipulation and we look for a short to trade back in this zone and then down. So move some of this. So price started breaking down, but it did not deliver the full 5 points and a quarter before it started buying up again. And so now we're sort of in at the midpoint, right at the entry, at the 30% retracement. But we do have a wick now. So anyone who wanted the 50% entry, they are now in the trade, and the 70% as well. So it went up and tapped 70%. Right, so let's now see when these trades start to end. Okay, so the 70% entries are near to making 5-point take profit. All right, so 70% has now reached right at the threshold. So it probably ended those trades if you had less than 4 contracts. Any more than that, you may have a couple that are still on. Okay, so that would have ended 70%. 70% traders are now out. Let's now shift down, see where the 50%ers are. Okay, 50%ers are now out. Their trade is a winner. And now 30%. Up 30% also. So all 3 retracement zones, regardless of your risk threshold, all 3 delivered the 5 points. Okay, let's remove these lines. Clean up our charts. And we should return to the sideline and wait. So in delivery of the last trade, we made a new low. So step 1 is complete. We now need to sweep a high. So the closest one is this one. Let's keep an eye on the clock. It's 3:45. Okay, actually they made a new high here. So now that's been swept. Step 2 is now done. Now we need price to collapse and make a new low. We have equal lows down here. So let's look and see if price wants to go there. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Zor. Thank you. Okay, what we want to do is while we wait to see if price wants to sweep these lows, we can go ahead and put our Fibonacci in place. Okay, let's move this over. We'll be using the short tool. Right, made a new high. So the manipulation is now a little larger. So we expand our Fibonacci. We readjust the short tool to the 30%, up one tick. There it is. Okay, actually, something is forming that I want to highlight and point out to everyone. And this is something to be aware of when using this strategy. When price wants to either make a change of direction or just wants to slow down progress for a bit, this is what you'll see happen. So if you start from the left, we see price breaking down, making new lows. And so what we had was we had a low and a high, a lower low, higher high, a lower low, a higher high. So what's happening now is price is doing one of these numbers. Earlier, it was doing the opposite. It was creating a funnel that was then making the price range smaller. Now it's doing the opposite, where the price range is getting larger. And then now probably break down and end up somewhere down here, sweep these lows, and it just keeps going back and forth. In that case, you want to put a pause on this strategy. This strategy is going to be tough to win if price is doing, and it's getting large, the range is getting larger, so it's going to start doing 20-point swings. Remember, we're doing scalping of a 5-point stop loss. So like a 30-point retracement, if it wants to go and take out this low, if we enter the trade here at 16,559, at 16,554.5, our trade is over, right? And that's right here. So if it makes a new low, we will be out of the trade before it wins. So in that case, we would have to enter at 50%, which is still kind of risky. Actually, you know what? Let me take that back. This was set up for a short. This is not a long. This is set up for a short. But when it does make a new low and we look for an entry at the 30%, if price is then seeking these highs, yeah, that's what I should have said. But you get the drift. Right now, price is not expanding in one direction; it's expanding in both directions. And this strategy is not built for price expanding in both directions. Yeah, Chris. Price is moving a little bit faster. So the last 15 minutes, it is a bit more volatile, and we do want to be aware of that. But we had, man, feel like you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we had 5 trades. If I'm not mistaken, that was 4 wins and 1 loss, or it may have been 5 wins. I can't remember. I had a feeling price would try to do something crazy at 355 or 350. Oh, look at this. Wow. This is a 15-second candle. And most of this movement happened in 2 or 3 seconds. Okay, let's get rid of these lines here. Doesn't appear we're bearish at the moment. Price is now taking over 3 new highs and within 2 ticks of the high of the day. So we had a sweep of lows here, lows here. So anyone who was trailing their stop looking for longs, this one candle made sure you're no longer in the trade. Yep. I didn't realize we were still on the 15-second. We've probably been on the 15-second for the last half hour or so, but good things were happening, so I'm not mad. But let's shift back over to the 30-second and just take a peek and see what it looks like. All right, so what we had essentially is we had price put in the high of the day, and then we had to come all the way back down and sweep these lows. Sorry, these lows. So this entire price leg was negated, and now price just ran back to make a daily high after coming down to sweep these lows. And just so we're clear, there's no science behind this line that I put here. It's just a pattern that I recognize with sight. But you can see price is respecting this zone as it climbs up. It's rejecting off and now rejecting back to make lower prices. It would not surprise me if this purple line is the next target. All right, we're closing in on 5 minutes remaining. As I speak, clearly the market makers are a little nervous and want to make sure they get to their target before the clock strikes 4 o'clock. So we have another high made after sweeping these lows. Oh man, so I'm not going to take this trade, but let's just see what happens. Let's see if it works out. Let's take our long tool and let's set it up over here at 30% and see what happens. Will we get the retracement down to 30% or not? Okay, yeah. So right now I don't have a position. If I had a position, what you would see is you would see something like this. So you would see the buy limit, and then it would have where the exit would be on both sides. And then once it taps in, you'll start seeing uh, the range change to let you know whether you're in profit or whether you're negative. Um, but sure, if I take a position, I'll mention it and call it out so everyone can see. Um, but even when I don't take a position, I still mark it up to show you what the setup is delivering. You don't have to take every single trade that you see, but I do want to show you how the model works and where the I guess where the levels are, so you can see where the trade setups are. Uh, but by using this tool, even if I don't take a position, you can see where the entry would have been. So you can see the candle cross through where the entry would be, and you can see either exit the top end to show where you would have taken profit, or exit the bottom end where you would have been stopped out if you were in a live trade. Um, since it's 4 o'clock, I'm not going to enter in a trade, but I did see this setup happen where we swept a low and then we made a new high. And then I just want to see if price action will deliver on this strategy at 3:55 in the afternoon. And usually what happens is if I'm sitting here and I'm waiting for it to retrace back for a trade, if it does a small retracement and then makes a new high like it just did, then I'll cancel my limit order and wait for something else. So in this case, I'm not expecting price to return to the 30% right now. I'm expecting for it to, like it just did, it made a new high. It could come down and sweep this low. Oops, this low right here. Go up, make a new high, and then we'll have a setup in this area, as opposed to needing it to retrace down to this area for the previous setup. So I'm abandoning the previous setup now. Alrighty, we've crossed over into 4 o'clock. I'll stay on for another 10 minutes. That's when at 4:10 is when the prop firms usually close their books, and so if you're in the middle of a trade, it'll just close it for you. Um, but I do want to thank everyone for joining the session today. I know it was not the greatest price action earlier this morning, not the greatest price action during the early part of today's afternoon session. But the last hour is what we normally like to see. And I'm glad that you were able to see the setup work. And so I just want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and join our future sessions. Yeah. Waited for everyone to close their laptops and then and then this happens. I created ETF instead of futures. No, I'm gonna trade futures. But for anyone who is not trading futures and wants to trade, I guess CTDs or CFDs, I'm sorry, CFDs, um, you're more than willing to do so. The difference is every broker has slightly different values. So you'll see a low on one broker that's different than the low on another broker. They'll be similar but different. Also on CFDs, the broker has some leeway on what the spread is. So I like trading futures. The future is one market. Everyone gets the same values at the exact same time. Um, Spreads are the exact same. And so I like trading futures. Plus the prop firm that I'm trading with is a futures prop firm. So I will be trading futures on this channel. But if you want me to look at another chart just briefly and take a look at something, I can. But I will be trading futures. All right. So Mr. Bond, I will see you tomorrow, 10 a.m. Yep, for the AM session. Okay, you want to see the S&P? Yeah. Hmm. Okay, so maybe I'm just not as familiar with ETFs. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I'll have to do some research. I'm not as familiar with this, and so I will be trading futures again tomorrow, same as today. But I will look into this and see exactly what ETFs are all about. I'm not familiar with it. But again, I do want to thank everyone for joining today. I think it was a good session. Just as important it is to learn how to trade, it's also important to learn when not to trade. And we saw a good example today. Well, we saw lots of examples of when not to trade, when price is just consolidating in a 20-point zone for an hour. That's probably not a good place that you want to place a trade in. Um, but from 3 until 4 o'clock, we saw very good price action, and we saw some profitable trades. For everyone who liked the video, thank you very much. Got 11 people liking the video today, which I appreciate. Yep. And we see price right now is likely going to just kind of fizzle out and consolidate through this little area that it's in now, and close out at the high of the day, high of the year, high of the month. So tomorrow should be interesting. Will we take out today's high, or will FOMC just drive price downwards? Something to think about for the overnight and heading into tomorrow morning's trading. What will interest rates and FOMC do to us? Right. Any final questions or comments? Anything from any of the members watching this live stream? Yes, I do know how to do that. Nope. So what you do is, your practice account, I'm assuming is what you're talking about. So let me just go into that. Okay. So, when you go inside, this is a bit tricky. I know how to do this. Right, let's see. All right, here we go. So I took a little screenshot. I didn't want to put the details of my account in here, but I do want to show you what this looks like. All right, so you'll notice that when you're inside of your Topstep, so you have to log into the topsteptrader.com dashboard. And you know, when you're here and you've blown your account or something and you want to reset your account, you just click the button here and it'll bring up the tool for you to pay and all those things. So what you want to do on this right side, it's because you're in Trading Combine. So you want to click practice right here. When you click practice here, then you can come over and click the reset, and then it'll reset your account for you. And then once that happens, what you need to do is you need to then go back into TradingView. You want to log out of Tradovate and then log back in. Okay. Then let me know if that was what you were hoping to find out. Okay. Hoping that you caught that and that was what you were hoping to find out. Okay, awesome. 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 Okay, everyone, it's now 11 after 4 o'clock. So unless there are any other questions, I will cut the feed now. I'll say goodbye to you all, and 10 a.m. tomorrow we will meet again. All right, I didn't get any other questions, so cheers, everyone. Till tomorrow.